Village of Romeo Board of Trustees will be held on Monday, December 18th, 2017, 7 p.m. at the Romeo Community Center on Morton Street. All rise for the pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call Mike.
Bartholomew?
Here.
Edwards?
Here.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Here.
Melzon?
Here.
Poznanski?
Here.
President Sigalo?
Present. Taking a motion to approve the minutes for both meetings of, what's our date? November 20th, the closed session, and the, I think we can do both, approve both the same one motion. The closed minutes and the open meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to pay the bills for the month.
Motion. Pay the bills.
Support.
Any discussion? Roll.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Edwards? Yes. Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Melzon?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
President Sigalo?
Yes.
And this is usually where we would have like a, maybe just a comment. I just noticed that the community stabilization came in,
Yes, it did.
and it's like way above what we had thought it would be.
Yeah, it's a wonder why, because they keep telling us that they don't know how they're gonna fund everybody's 100%. That's what puts me in that worrisome type of feeling every time we get something that substantial, even though they do say that,
Budget for it.
even though they say, yeah, that's yours, I just don't want it to become a water tower Ford moment.
Right. And there has to be some kind of responsibility that they take for that type of thing. It's
Yeah, the
not-
responsibility is, hey, you guys, we over assessed it and we want it back.
But there's got to be some at some point where they can't do that. But
Yeah. So
I don't know what that is. But we did get us in that. It was 300,000 we thought, and we got 800. So.
Reports and communications.
I'll be brief. Just continue working continue to work with HRC, Al and Tim, who are here tonight on our asset management plans. They're going to give us updates on that, along with our SAW. Next month will be our public hearing for our community development block grants. Already posted. It should be in the newspaper this week. Attended the State of the County along with the majority of the board here. Mark Eckel did a great job. Attended the tree lighting Christmas parade along with Washington Township tree lighting. I just wanted to say a good thank you to Parks and Rec. They do a great job every year. Just a reminder, we notice this every year, but if you know there's a looming snow emergency coming to your community, don't park in the streets. All right, allow the plow truck drivers to actually clean the streets for us. And on top of it, don't put your trash cans out there. That's shovel a little path, put your trash cans there so that DPW can clean the streets. If not, you're going to be cleaning up trash also with your snow. So, but that is it.
Again, I would just like to thank Amy Hall and Lisa Hall and the Chamber of Commerce for a great job on the school banners. And on a personal note, I'd like to thank Roberta Justina for getting me to work every day on time and around traffic. And I don't know if you guys know Roberta. She's on 9:50 in the morning. She also lives in She always, I want to thank her on behalf of Romeo for always giving us positive feedback about Romeo.
Is that on the radio, 9:50?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's right
She lives in Romeo?
She's right on West St. Clair.
That's nice.
Yeah. I get up early,
That's FM?
and she's on the radio
No.
when I'm going to work, so she gets up really early. So thank you, Ms. Justina. And Merry Christmas, and I hope everybody has a safe and happy holiday season. Thank you. Committee reports?
Just we're going to be guiding
Yeah.
about later on.
Public forum, if anybody would like to speak, now's the time. Please be courteous to others, and please limit to 5 minutes. Mr. Brown?
Just hello from Macomb County. I saw you, most of you at the State of the County address. It was really good to see you. Just wanted to come by and say hello, so, as you know, I'm working in Congressman Mitchell's office as well, and both he and I stand ready to be assets to the board in the coming year. But work on projects together as we have. And we got our little areas of specialties where we can reach down and help with certain things. And you obviously here on ground level have got access to most everything, but we just want to let you know that we're available to you. You know, the county's in good shape financially. You heard Mark give a report. The budget's almost 6% less than it was the year before last. That's pretty amazing. And last year was almost flat. It was $300,000 above the previous year's budget, and about $475 million budget. And with the new roles that we've changed with the county executive now on the board, our job is primarily financial responsibilities and oversight. And so we spent a lot of time working on the budget with the executive's office, and got a good budget. We're providing the same quality service we always have. We just been continuing to squeeze some juice out of the apple a little bit, and we're operating leaner, and it's going well. And the Department of Roads is fully under the Board of Commissioners budget authority, and with the executive overseeing that department as well, and been doing well, and we'll continue to work with the village on projects that are needed. 32 Mile Road, it's been out there. It's been out there over a year now, just about, but certainly that was needed, an improvement. And continue to try to work where we can get other assets and maybe other things that the village needs for road improvements and infrastructure improvements out here as well. USDA rural developments. This Romeo, the north of 26 Mile primarily is in the USDA service center, U.S. rural development area, and as such, there are certain programs we can take advantage of to help improve our community, housing, rehab, so forth. And certain families that are eligible for that can take advantage of that program. I've used it before out in the north end, and now talking with a couple residents here in Romeo about possibly doing that for them. And thinking initially, I'm going to talk to Congressman Mitch about maybe just bringing a whole program out here. Maybe we could open up and make just a couple individuals, maybe see if we can cast a larger net and see if somebody's interested in that. So I'll work with Mike and see how that can be put together. But anyway, we're all serving the same constituencies, and we just got different roles. And I just want to say hello and let you know, to remind you of all that. Our office is on 23 Mile, Congressman Mitchell's office, and for any issue you have with federal government, passports, going to Washington for tours perhaps, or anything involving veterans benefits, anything involving the federal government, you got a snafu with, call our office. We'll do a congressional inquiry and try to get it unstuck. And maybe we can help you get it resolved quicker rather than later. Everything's slow in government, and federal government especially. It's bigger amount of people coming to fewer people to process things, so sometimes it gets stuck. And so we just look at it and maybe move it along a little bit quicker. So, but anyway, that's all I want to take. You got a short agenda. I don't want to monopolize it. Like my meeting went the other day. Every time there's a short meeting, it goes long, so I won't jinx it here. So anyway, just want to say hello, and good to see you all, and I'll hang on a little bit.
Thanks for coming out.
I'd like to add to his statement. I reached out to Mr. Brown as far as the rural development. We have some seniors in the community that he's gotten me the applications, and I'm currently working with them to fill out the applications so they can get some rehab work done in their house. So, thank you for that. I do appreciate that.
Wonder where that came from.
Put me in touch with the right person. Yeah. So I'll make sure, Mike, that you get the information too.
I have all that.
Oh, you have it?
information. It's
Okay.
all at the village office.
Okay.
You can, I've got copies of pass them out.
Approval of the agenda with any additions or deletions Mr. Clark wants to add before we can get something he's been working on, MLP
Number 3.
rules for new business for number 3.
That's it. You want to name it civil infraction?
Sure.
MIP?
Just MIP ordinance would be fine if that's acceptable.
All right.
Do you just have a draft or something for us?
I
that
do.
You're just introducing it? Okay.
I do.
Okay, if we're gonna, yeah, because I'll make the motion to approve the agenda. Well, I guess we can do it after I don't want to belabor it or anything, but I do want to touch on the minutes again. I don't know if you saw that they didn't publish the whole thing and what we're getting published.
And they
so.
redid it this week because it was on 2 segments and they didn't post the other one, so it
Okay.
was completely redone.
So they
the same.
redid it, okay,
For free,
okay, well,
like we expected.
all right. Yeah, I didn't see it in the other paper. Still, if we can just touch on it real quick, we could have done it up here, it won't belabor it. If we want to do old business number 2, or just put in the minutes. I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda with the addition of the MIP ordinance, and then under old business, number 2, minutes.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a agenda. Number 1, HRC Road Asset Management Plan. You're up, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Again, I'm Keith McCormick with Hubble Roth and Clark. And I'm bringing one of my trusted associates here with me, Helen Davis. She's been working with me on a lot of what we're talking about tonight. And her main job is to make me look good, which is a real challenge, but that's what she's supposed to do. I assume everybody got a copy of this in their packets? Okay, so I'm going to go through this quickly. And there's a lot of information in here. I'm not going to try and go through it step by step, but if you have any questions, certainly slow me down or stop me, whatever you want to do, it's fine. I thought we'd do an update of the SAW program. I think most of you are familiar that we've got a couple of grants to look at your sanitary sewers and your storm sewers, to inventory, condition assessment, and the like. But we also, as it turns out, this year we've got like 3 other different asset management type projects that are due at the end of the year. And so I thought this would be a good time to kind of walk through all of them. So what's going on here, the first sheet here, we've got all these asset management plans, or AMPs they call them. The roads, sanitary sewer, Al's got something for the NPDES, that's the permit for Al's wastewater plant. Storm sewers, an asset management plan, water system, and then we have a kind of a different study, a water reliability study. So I'll just touch on all those, but let me give you a little bit of background on what is asset management, the next page. This kind of summarizes it. First you're doing an inventory. What do I own? You know, how many sewers, what's the length of the sewers? What condition are they in? Are they in good condition, fair condition, poor condition? Which ones are most critical assets? So the 15-inch sewer going underneath 53 that carries all the flow from the village to the wastewater plant is probably a little bit more critical than something up a cul-de-sac. So you kind of organize which sewers are the ones that you want to look at first. Both might be in poor condition, but which one do you want to fix first? The one underneath 53, because that can be a problem if that were to fail. Level of service, you know, what kind of service do I want to provide for my residents, like with storm drainage? Do I want to protect for a 10-year storm, a 20-year storm, 5-year storm? You know, the larger the storm you want to protect for, the more expensive it is. So you have to kind of balance, you know, how much protection do I want to have versus what can I really afford? And then finally, after you've gone through all that whole analysis, what is it going to take to bring up my system? You know, I know I've got so many sewers that are about to collapse. What does it take to fix them? What type of repairs, and how much is it going to cost? So that's kind of a real quick nutshell of what asset management is. So the first one I want to talk about is road asset management plan, and this is a requirement that MDOT asks of all of the communities to submit, looking at the roads. And it isn't just an exercise in analyzing your road condition. It does give you some flexibility on how you use your money. You get what's called Act 51 monies to pay for roads. That some of that the road money is restricted. You can only use it on major streets, but if you do this asset management plan, you can use that money on local streets as well. So there's an advantage to completing this every year. That's the good news. The bad news in looking through all the streets, one of our engineers, Colette, I think it was Colette, went with Tim, drove every street in the village and did what's called a PASER rating, which is a process, a kind of a uniform process that everyone uses in the state to evaluate, is this road, is it in good condition, fair condition? And if you turn to the second page, you can see a little bit of how the PASER ratings, you know, what does it really mean? You know, if you're 10 is the best, 1 is the worst. And if you're up at 10, 9, or 8, then just kind of routine maintenance is all you need. If you're in that 6, 7, 6, 5, you need a little bit more. And the farther down you go, the worse it is. And the last time we did this was in 2015, I guess, and our PASER rating was about a 3.9. And this year it's a 2.2.
So this is like Tennessee, Ohio, and Michigan?
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, you could probably, yes, you're getting the knack of this asset management. So it is a little concerning, and I think it's something that you know, that's what we had to report to the state, and it's something that I think as a board, you're going to have to kind of come to grips with it at some point, because if you continue to allow it to deteriorate, becomes more and more expensive. You know, obviously, if you're just changing your oil in your car, it's really easy, but if you don't ever change the oil, then you need to replace the whole engine. So you're up to that point where at some point here, in the next year or two, you're gonna have to try to make a decision as to what you wanna do. The last time there was any kind of major improvements, we did a big water program back in 93, 94, and you did resurface a number of roads. And in driving around the other day with Helen and with Mike McDonald, it looks like that kind of mill and overlay process is still available in a good part of the village. So you've got some options, but we just don't want to let it go too far. The 94, 95 project was about $3 million in today's dollars. If you were to resurface every single road, it'd be about almost $15 million. That's probably not going to happen and not really necessary, but again, at some point, you have to kind of make a decision which direction you want to go.
Now, are there some that we would do the ceiling, like the, just the
Yeah,
cracks?
yes. So they vary. You know, some roads are, well, obviously, 32 Mile Road, you just did that a few years ago. So that's in good condition. I mean, that's county road. But you know, there are others that we've worked on. So yes, so the whole gamut, but the average is working its way down
To where it would get to be
Yeah,
milled?
yeah. So,
Powell
We're
Road
at
is
two.
a county road, which they consider local.
Because I went down there today, it's terrible.
I know, yeah, we've had a couple meetings with them, so.
And I remember when that road went in, and there was, somewhere in the records, there has to be, that was an experimental road. There's different types of concrete throughout that road. I remember that, so there may be, they might want to go back and say it failed.
Yeah, well, the county, they said if
Because
it
every
was, if
section
it
of
was an
it's bad.
experimental road, like the county said, if it was an experimental road and it was good, everybody would hear about it. But they have no clue about it being any type of experimental road, so it must have been a fail.
So I know a lot of communities in Michigan under the same limitations as far as funding. If you're getting money from Act 51 monies, you can't create any more from that. So a lot of communities have gone through a road millage and had to put it up for a vote to their residents. And I would say 80 to 90% of them have been successful because people see you don't have to do a sell job. But, you know, again, that's just one option, and I'm sure you'll be deliberating on a lot of different ideas before you take your next step forward. But just something you need to keep in mind. All right, so that's the roads. Sanitary sewer, this is the big SAW program that we're working on now. SAW, again, stands for Stormwater, Asset Management, and Wastewater. This one you have no grant match. So up to this point, we have been doing scanning, taking your hard copy drawings and putting it into a digital format so that it can be loaded up into what's called a geographic information system. This is a software that it brings together a map with a database table. So Mike and Tim and Donna and Al, they're going to be able to look at a manhole and click on it, and it'll say it was built in '76, it's 48 inches, it's block, it was last inspected in '93, and it's in this condition. So it's a very powerful tool. And plus, as you do programs, you'll be able to generate drawings. Show me all the sewers that are older than 1950. And so it's a very powerful tool to get an idea. Well, what kind of condition am I in? Where do I have my biggest problem? So that's what we've been focusing on up to this point. We've been working with Mike to get some computers and software for the staff. We're going to be doing some training. And we also have purchased some maintenance software for the wastewater treatment plant. Again, this is software where Al will be able to keep track of, okay, this pump needs to have lubricated every 3 months, and so it'll automatically tell them, okay, it's time for you to look at this pump, and other issues. So our next steps for the sewer asset management plan, we're going to complete this data conversion, scanning the plans, putting them into the digital format. We're also going to create some what I call maintenance apps, so that for your sanitary sewer will have fields in the GIS that'll say, again, when was the last time the sewer was cleaned? And again, that's something that Al will be able to use, can keep track again of how, where are the problem areas, which ones need attention. When, our next big step is next spring, we're gonna be cleaning and televising the sewers. So they actually go in and put a camera inside and they look at these sewers. We're not gonna do everything in town, but we will do a good portion of it, working with Al Tim to figure out which ones need the attention, which ones are most likely to have failures or needs that we wanna know about. And so the good news is you know what the condition is, the bad news, sometimes you know what the condition is. So, but I will say I've been participating on the state's asset management pilot program. The governor right now is collecting this kind of information all across the state, primarily in southeast Michigan and in the Grand Rapids area, to try to build a case for, in Michigan, what infrastructure needs do we have? We're having a tremendous opportunity here. We're collecting all of this data. Well, what does it tell us? And I think the governor's hoping to use that as a case to have some kind of an infrastructure fund. They're talking about a Michigan Infrastructure Council, the Water Asset Management Council. So stay tuned in the next few years. It could be something that would help our local communities. All right, sanitary sewers, NPDES, it stands for National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. That's the permit that Al has, controls how he operates his wastewater treatment plant. So on top of the sanitary sewer asset management plan, in his permit, his most recent permit, which came out last year or this year before, okay. It said that by this date, he has to submit an asset management plan. Basically, we're telling the state that we're in a SAW, and here's our schedule, this is what we're gonna do. And it's as simple as that. The only difference is that it also asks, he's going to have to, both Al and Tim, are going to have to report on their maintenance activities every fall. So, what are we doing? What is the village doing to maintain its system, including a review of rates? Are you keeping up with your needs? Just from an operation and maintenance standpoint, it's not dealing with capital or any bonding or anything like that. Just are your rates sufficient to pay for your normal maintenance activities? So that's a little twist, which again, we're gonna have to work with Mike and Al and Tim to come up with how do we draw out this data that you're keeping on a regular basis. But it is something you'll need to report every year. That's empty. Okay, storm sewers. That's again a very small program. We have $511,000 for that. There is a local match for that. We are beginning to do the data conversion of the maps to GIS. We haven't been focusing on this as much, so stay tuned again. We'll keep you apprised. Okay, so water system asset management plan. So again, the state of Michigan has required every community in the state to submit a water asset management plan. Of course, we're looking for the funding for this, and there is no funding. So this has been something. What do they call that? The unfunded mandate,
Yes.
right?
Unfunded mandate.
Yes, unfunded mandate. We used to use that word a lot more than we have recently, but it's the same concept. The good thing is that they're not asking for anything as nearly in depth as we're doing for the storm and the sanitary. Much more broad brush view of what you have. Again, but they are telling communities that you need to understand what it is you own. We're basically giving Tim just the tools. So here's essentially what you have. We're building in our GIS the ability to convert all the water system in that as well. It won't have all the attributes or all the data that the storm and the sanitary will be, but it'll be there.
And we completed that.
Yes, we
And
completed
submitted
that.
yesterday or today?
Yeah, today, yes. So actually, this along with what's called the water reliability study, which is the next page, which is not the same thing as an asset management plan, but that is a report that's been required every 5 years, although the state hasn't really enforced it. But it's a similar type report. We did one 5 or so years ago.
Yeah.
And so both of these were due January 1. We actually submitted them today, and the state has acknowledged receipt of that. So we're good with that. Again, lots of asset management here on all of your systems. The takeaways from this, again, on the road side, I think you really need to start looking at your road system and decide, map out a strategy for the next few years. It's a great opportunity. We're going to have some nice tools. We'll be continuing until the fall of 2019, so we've got 2 more years. And we have already submitted a water and reliability report. So.
Now, as part of from the state, their focus on water quality, or is it the infrastructure integrity?
Mostly the infrastructure integrity, but by inference, then hopefully it's delivering a better water quality. It's not
It's not just a Flint.
No, it's not a
knee-jerk
Flint
reaction. Okay.
So the water reliability has been required for quite some time, but they haven't necessarily pushed it. So that's it. Probably went longer than what I needed to, but again, I could talk about this all day long. Okay? It's engineering. Any questions? I'd be glad to take them later, or feel free to call me or email me.
Just get a little chance to look at our situation at the end of Dickinson where we don't have any.
It's on the.
It's on it?
It's on the big circle yellow
Okay.
chunk.
So you're able to use that as far as what we do lack?
Yep.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Tim's got a big
Thanks for coming
pointer
in.
and a
Yep.
highlighter. Tim uses a highlighter a lot.
New business number 2, special events permit. I'll make the motion to approve the St. Baldrick's permit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Is it hard?
I second it, yeah. So Mike's doing our electrical now?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's taking Pete's last day, I think it was my last day or so. Well, I think he had a couple that he had a final on.
Yeah, I just ran into him today. He said that he's doing it.
Yeah.
That's good.
One question in regards to St. Boulder's fundraiser. Every year, you guys do the parade. There's a lot of work and effort that goes into setting all the barricades up, closing the streets down for 30 people to walk down the street. Is that going to continue that way? Because that's a lot of effort that goes into a very small
For sure.
little aspect of something that, it's only 15 people.
Right.
Even though we understand
Right.
that it's a good thing.
I understand. Just in case anybody doesn't know, I'm sort of taking over this event for Mike Fiskus. For this year, he's looking just to take a step back. He's still assisting me in chairing it, but there were some other people that were more interested in maybe moving it back out of Romeo, and I wanted it to stay in downtown Romeo, so I stepped up, and I'm chairing this event this year. So to answer that question, we've had a kickoff meeting, and our parade committee chairperson was not able to attend. We have the next meeting scheduled on January 9th, and hopefully we'll get a little more detail. We kicked around some ideas at that meeting on how to improve that parade. It seems like it's a great way to start and kick off the event, and the Shavies, that's why we do it. They're walking sort of downtown with their crazy painted heads and then into the tent to actually proceed with the shaving. So they kind of get a kick out of it, but I agree. We'd like to expand it or maybe come up with another idea to do that instead of having the road closure. So I'll keep you updated. I did put that on the event because I wanted
It's
to
always
apply
been
for it. But if we do end up not having it, I'll certainly keep everybody updated in the village and the police department. And I did note your question, chief, that we would like to retain the village
You wanna
police.
do like you did last year?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course, we're hoping that maybe you guys would consider donating part of that back to the fundraising, since we're all volunteers. We will have to get sponsorship money to pay the officer's salary, but we feel better knowing that our local village police are there,
You know,
working in conjunction with us.
honestly, I think that being that I had 2 people out there, is that what I had last year?
I'm honestly not sure what the shifts
I
were,
th-
so.
I think my budget can handle that, we won't charge you for it.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. I didn't know if with the extra opening, because we did have an extra opening on the east side of the street in front of FAMS, that tent didn't have that opening, which the fire chief is all for more openings, but I know that's a little bit harder for
That's hard to
security
do,
to
yeah.
staff it, but that side of the street felt a little closed off, especially to the businesses who may want to participate. But I'd love to have a conversation with you to see, what your feedback was and what your input could be on how to make it better and safer, because we would really like to move it into a more family-friendly event. We're hoping to add a couple of food trucks this year, something new, and expound upon the kids' activities down in the Masonic Temple, so, perfect.
Thanks for stepping up.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a lot of effort.
It is. Well, fingers crossed that we're still number 6 in the country, and we're shooting for $330,000 this year in fundraising for that. It's a tremendous effort, so I think it's Romeo proud that we can, out of all of the events, be number 6 in the whole country. We have a generous community, and it comes out in droves, so I register, everybody get online and register for Shavies.
And volunteers.
And volunteers, yes.
Mr. Clark, you're up.
I have a handout. I apologize for not getting these into your packages. I was out of town last week. The state of Michigan has a statute, and the village has an ordinance making it unlawful for minors to consume or possess or purchase alcohol. And the state of Michigan decriminalized all right, thank you. The state of Michigan decriminalized the activity, meaning it was a misdemeanor if you're under 21 and you consume, purchase, or possess alcohol, you could be prosecuted and put in jail. A few years ago, it was still maintained as a misdemeanor, but there was no possibility of jail unless you violated a term or condition of your probation. The state has gone a little bit further and said for a first offense, it will be a civil infraction. If you have a second or third or subsequent offense, it will then become a misdemeanor. The idea still being to put people on probation. If there's a possibility of jail, it's because you violate a term or condition of your probation. You don't fulfill any requirements the court might impose, including some type of alcohol education program. The law changes effective January the 1st, and so my request would be that you adopt this tonight, but if you don't, if the village already has an ordinance, it just makes it a misdemeanor, which is no longer permissible under state law, at least for a first offense. If you don't adopt this, which you don't have to certainly, after January 1st, until the village does adopt the ordinance, the police department would simply write the tickets under state law. So it's not that it won't be enforced, it's just a question of who would prosecute the violations. And in terms of the how it's positioned, what happens, what the police officers do, writing tickets, which they write tickets already, none of that changes. The only thing that's changed is the penalty provision. If it's prosecuted under state law, do we lose funding?
You do, because the any revenue would go, it still goes to the court, but the sharing of the revenue under local ordinance prosecutions, you would lose that. And I don't know if the library would lose that as well. I don't know if that's under the local
allocation or if that's separate regardless. I'm not sure if the penal fines and things of that nature are still allocated the same, but the village would lose its allocation.
How many-
The only thing that's changed is on this from what we had is the misdemeanor to an infraction.
Correct.
How many of
First
these
offense.
cases do you typically prosecute?
I couldn't tell you, or as we speak, I can't tell you a raw number. I can tell you it's somewhat of a seasonal offense. There tends to be more of them in the summer when people are out and about more. I believe there are probably more around holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, graduation. In terms of the activity, on a percentage basis, I don't think, and Lieutenant Sokolnicki may be able to give you some indication, I don't think the activity is great, but we do see them.
And one thing I'd like to get maybe some input from it, because there's the costs involved. Now, you're there the day anyway, so you're
I
not,
am, right.
it's not a big deal there, but a lot of times you're gonna have, one of our officers are gonna be in court for the time too, and if the fine is $100, and we get maybe, what, a half or a third of that or something?
I'm not sure what the allocation is. A couple of things. The civil, to address that concern, as you mentioned, I'm there anyway, whether it's a civil infraction or a misdemeanor violation. If it's written under local ordinance, I'm already there. So you already have incurred that expense to me. With respect to the substance of it, the prosecution, the tickets, civil infractions, they're easier, at least in my view, because the presumption is we have to prove our case by a preponderance of the evidence, not beyond a reasonable doubt. If it's a misdemeanor, if it's a crime, proof has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. So it facilitates the enforcement, at least in my opinion. Again, Lieutenant Sokolnicki may think differently. And in terms of...
But so an officer would be present if it's gonna be in court?
Either way.
Either way, the officer will be present, but what happens, a vast majority of the time, two things. One is, if it's a misdemeanor, they're set for a pretrial. Officers aren't present for pretrials unless there's a special circumstance. And most of these are resolved at the pretrial, so the officer, the overtime you might incur generally is not triggered. If it's a civil infraction, it would be set for a formal hearing, but typically those are resolved without the presence of the officer. If the officer is required, we adjourn it and have the officer there. So in terms of officer participation and incurring overhead or additional overhead because of overtime and things like that, I don't think this is going to affect that at all.
Well, I don't think this law is put in place to generate revenue. I think it's
No.
put in place to deter
Right.
underage drinking.
Yeah.
We should hope.
I would make a motion to adopt
And
the,
there's
Trying to
not-
the point we don't lose money on it.
Right, it could cost us money if we didn't do it,
Right.
it might save us money to where we do it, that's all I'm
Yes.
thinking of.
Yes.
It may not
Yes.
pay for itself.
Right, but I will say, even if you don't adopt this, in terms of the cost to the department or the cost to me, I don't think you're gonna see any difference.
I would make a motion to adopt
And I don't,
the said ordinance prepared by Mr. Clark.
I don't have a problem with this. I think it's a good idea, but to the point that we sort of agreed that we weren't gonna add long-term affected items onto our agenda at the night of the meeting, I think informed consent, we may need to just table this for a vote until next month. It's my input.
And your meeting next month is early, it's
Right.
the 8th, so in terms of,
Right, I know, but I just got this, I haven't had a chance to
Right.
read it. No one else has had a chance to see it on our posted agenda or
I don't
offer
just,
any input. I don't know that they would, I don't, I'm just throwing
as,
it out there.
as an advisor, I don't disagree with that, and in terms of if there's some kind of downside to the delay, again, and I spoke to Mr. Lee about this earlier today, your meeting's early in January, so what you're talking about is between December 18th and January 8th.
Right.
So if you feel more comfortable waiting, I understand your point and it's well taken, however the board wishes to proceed.
I'd like to know if the chief has anything that you think that we should consider.
Well, as far as your money issues, it's, whether it's under the state ordinance or under the village ordinance, it's not gonna cost any more on my end. If stays a village ordinance, the village will make money. Because either way, like Mark said, if it goes to a formal hearing, my officers aren't there until there's actually a hearing. If there is a hearing, it'd be the same as if it was a misdemeanor where they want a trial, then we'd have to bring the officer in, so it's not gonna change anything as far as that.
And we
As
have
far as
local
waiting
control.
till your meeting next month, you're talking 8 days. I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's, I believe it goes into effect on the first of the year.
It does.
Yeah,
Right.
so if you did adopt it in January, it would be 8 days later, then we'd have state law for the first 8 days.
But you're-
Of course, you are looking
New
at
Year's.
New Year's.
Right.
Oh, shoot. But you're okay with this?
Oh, yeah, it's necessary. I believe that
I'll-
anything that we have that the state changes, if we can keep it in the village, as a village ordinance, we're better.
I'll still support your motion.
You wanna keep it?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no reason to put off till tomorrow to be done today. We could have a huge, never know, huge agenda in January. Do roll.
Well, Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Melzan,
Nope.
Poznanski,
Yes.
President Siglo.
Yes. Old business, sidewalk RFP update. Bob, you wanna?
Well,
How
I
would
want
I
to do what
give
you
the
guys
update?
have done. Yeah, I don't have much to update. I got a little bit of information, but it's
Mike's
not,
got quite a bit.
it's just for the thing,
Yeah, I
so.
got, so, I don't have an RFP for you, I did put together a time frame of us on how we wanna react to this RFP.
Is there anything
moving
in here, or?
forward. No.
Okay.
I was able to finally talk to Scott this morning, it wasn't in the lack of me trying, it was the lack of him being able to pick up the phone and answer and said, oh shoot, it's Mike Lee, so let's talk to him. But he's a great guy, wealth of information, HRC works with Sterling Heights, they do a great job with them, that's what he said, they helped out.
Is Chris McLeod still with HRC? And
Chris McLeod's never been with HRC.
Oh, I thought he was.
No, he's a planner, but he does work for Sterling Heights.
Yeah, I know he works with Sterling Heights. 'Cause I was gonna
So
think
it's
he
totally
could
different.
be involved.
So I implemented, Bartholomew got me the docs, I put them all in a little spreadsheet and all that type of stuff. We're at 1,182 slabs, 388 locations. This is by 4x4, or 16 square foot per slab. We're looking at about 18,912 in regards to the square foot. One thing that isn't put in here is how many of these slabs are over approaches, which have to be 6 inches. So that's something that has to be looked at, and that'd be a tough thing to bid if we don't know the locations and how many are above approach or at an approach.
I think with the, okay, I'll let you finish.
Go ahead if you have a question.
With that regard, I think that unless Chris gave you maybe some other information, they would give us a price. Scott, excuse me, I'm sorry. I was thinking Chris McLeod. That they would give us a price, and the variance would be whether it's 6 inches or it's gonna be the 4 inches. So they're gonna give us a square footage cost for 6 inches, or they're gonna give us a cost based on the 4 inches. So it'll just flush out on being what it is. We'll
No,
have-
because what happens is the implementation process. You've never did a sidewalk permit, so there's other portions of that sidewalk that are 6 inches, and then there are only 4. Now, when we go to bill, which I grabbed some billing structure stuff from Sterling Heights, which is a great thing to have there, is that we don't want to short us, we also don't want to short them of what they're going to pay us back.
They have to know what
So
percentage
they
is
have to
gonna
know-
be 6
well,
inches.
So it's not that it's
Well,
not
the
a good idea.
permit portion is our end, right? The permit is what we would provide. It's not gonna be a cost that our supplier would be charging
There's
us
a contract that's
for the permit.
Well, it depends on, when we write, see, it's just not throwing an RFP together, there's all little fragments of it. The permit, they come, the way it goes right now is that if we get a complaint, or if somebody needs to pull a permit for a cement, if it's over 100, if it's over 50 square foot, they come in, give us a permit for $25. We implement the permit, they sign off if they want reimbursement for it, because it could be a little bit of a small one, big one, whatever. They're gonna do it by themselves. Tim Metz goes out and inspects the hole, the approach, that type of thing, measures, make sure it's 6 inches or 4 inches, all right, and then they get the okay, and then they do the pour. Then they submit that it's been complete, and then what we do is reimburse them for half of the material costs. Because there is administrative fees that are right.
Right.
So it's.
So those are all our costs. That's not our contractor. Our contractor would say, we're gonna charge you this much a square foot for 6 inch, and we're gonna charge you this much a square foot for 4 inch. And then how those flush out are gonna flush out. The other costs are, it's important, but it's not our contractor that's gonna charge, he's gonna charge 6 inch from whatever I saw. He's gonna have to remove 6 inch, he's gonna charge us for that. He's gonna put in 6 inch, he's gonna cost for that. Our permits, our inspection, and everything else is a cost, and it's work that has to be done, but it's not the contractor's work. He can bid out and tell us how much it's gonna cost for 6 inch deep cement, and how much it's gonna cost for 4 inch.
Yes, and that's what I'm getting at, is what our reimbursement amount will be, which that's why we've been at that,
Reimbursement amount for,
the material costs to the owners that.
yeah, but that's still on our part too.
No,
A
it's not.
contractor's gonna charge us X, and then we're going to split the cost with the property owner, but we can charge also what it costs us to have inspections done and that, so we can cover our administrative fee. With the contractor, let's say he charges $200, it's $200.
It's $200, but then what we do is deal with the half of the. Well, that's another portion of it. Now, we can do a bulk permit along 32 Mile Road in North Main. All those sidewalks are within the right-of-way. I've talked to the county, they suggest that because other people will be doing the contracted work, not necessarily us, that every individual should take on the permit. Especially if they decide that they're gonna have somebody else do it instead of the Village of Romeo, because they're gonna pay the whole remaining amount if we're gonna actually do it. They'd rather have their buddy do it, but they want them to pull the permits through the county when it's in the right-of-way.
Yeah, and I can't think that can be cost effective, just even the permits alone and that.
Well, they charge, and then they hold the deposit on it.
Yeah, I just,
So, the thing about Sterling Heights
People
doesn't have that
apply
problem
permits?
because their sidewalk projects are only on their local roads and that's it.
mhm,
They might have a sporadic here and there, but it doesn't have any factor on them.
right,
They also have 73 quadrants that they're working with.
Right.
We have 4.
right. And you're talking about the commercial properties on Main and 32, or are you talking about homes that are all the way up by Sisson?
Everything that's within the.
All the
Within the
other
village.
county roads.
Everything, the
All
sidewalks?
32 Mile Road, all North and South
Okay.
Main are within the.
So those have to
Right,
be
right.
treated different. But you know do you understand what I'm saying though, as far as what the contractor, if he's going to figure out per square foot what it's gonna take to go in, remove the concrete, put up the forms, pour so much thick and so many square feet of concrete, they're gonna be charging us for that, X.
Yeah,
Hang on.
but if we're off,
Well, off, I would say that, you know, we could even, in the RFP, let's even be conservative. If you're saying there was 18,000 square foot, we can see where cost breaks might be, where you would say, okay, we only did 9,000, that would be half of it. What would be the cost per square foot? You might find that might be enough that it's not gonna make a big difference. And then, 12.
well, that's the best way for us to, well, we're gonna have to pay for it in the whole, okay? For the neighbor to pay for the approach over their sidewalk compared to our one block, we wanna make sure that we're divvying it out
Well-
and precise.
Would it be helpful to know how many squares are on the approaches that need to be replaced?
Yes, and we'll
Yeah,
need to
that's
know
what
that at some point. I don't know if
That's
we
what
need
I'm
it
saying.
for the
I think what
RFP.
he's saying too is, we need, so that we're not so far off, it would be helpful to know how many of those are gonna be the 6 inches. And I would be willing to go through again and count how many are on approaches, because that would be a lot easier than what I did there.
Wait, what do you mean? Because they still have to be repaired.
It would just be the
Yeah, but
percentage.
that will break down the,
What he's saying,
You get more of an
we would-
accurate.
we have 18,000 square feet, right?
Which ones
And
are
if it'd be helpful to say 4,000 is
it'll
gonna
give you
be
an accurate
6 inch
count,
deep,
and then it'll give you a percentage.
and 12,000
It'll
is
just
gonna
give
be
us-
4 inch.
See, but what I'm saying is, if we know the number of ones that are over approaches that have to be the 6 inches, now we can calculate and get a little bit more of a accurate number as far as the volume of
And what
cement
the
we're
total,
gonna
and what the
need.
total cost would be. I
Right,
was just thinking
right.
it didn't hold up the RFP.
I didn't know that.
We need to know it, but I think we could move ahead with the
I would be
RFP.
willing to do that.
The other
That wouldn't
thing
be
is,
that hard. It'd
you know,
still
you
take
had
a while,
mentioned
but-
as far as.
We wanna be somewhat, we wanna be precise on it.
Yeah, be real
I mean,
close.
Exactly.
We're looking at 81 more slabs.
Makes
You
a
don't want the
big
contract,
difference.
you go by look at every, I
So, when I did the
You got
math,
more
I could be
accurate
wrong,
Mhm.
you guys could be wrong, 6 or one way, I'm not.
Yeah, and I don't
But-
know where those breaks, you know, would come in, but it seemed to be,
Well,
you
it'd
know,
be it'd be
pretty good
manageable. If
amount.
we do it in quadrants, I'm for doing it in
Yes, there
quadrants.
you
I
go.
don't think we should do it
Yeah.
all at once. I
There you
don't
go.
think it costs too
Yep.
much for.
But once we know
If
what
we
the
do it in
costs are.
quadrants, it'd be manageable.
Better
If we
control.
had 6 squares off on this, it's not gonna be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Now, do you agree, like you had put in the one email, that we should be getting the cost for cement? And
Well, what I
don't
was thinking is,
understand that.
if we go out and bid it for yardage, that type of standpoint, and give every vendor, it was a question. Some
Okay.
people, yes or no, it varies. If we go out for RFP for pour, the amount of pour yardage that we can calculate, and then give every vendor that information, so we're not getting, and because we know we're gonna get it at the state price, then they can formulate a better,
Right.
But
you know,
I think
about-
if they're working
I would
with.
recommend that village buys.
You kinda gotta know.
Okay, let me-
It's just
let's-
cheaper, you're gonna get a better price.
Understand.
Okay,
When we build the building, I buy the concrete.
Okay.
The labor, the cement guy supplies the labor.
Okay,
It's
well-
it's just cheaper that.
I'm gonna get
We're-
the numbers, Mike,
we're-
anyways, just
I
so you
think,
have
I
it.
think if they were doing
Yeah,
it, whether it
we'll
was
do it.
Toy
Direct.
or,
Be good,
All right.
I think you're right.
okay, but let me just give you one.
I mean, it's helpful.
If it's gonna be Toy or whoever the cement is, they can know that it's gonna be going to the village of Romeo and they can do this. But if the contractor is not purchasing the cement, and let's say they're doing it based on full loads, and let's say the contractor, the state only needs a quarter of a load, and the pricing is gonna be fluctuating that way.
That's not our
And,
problem.
okay, and how about a warranty? Sterling Heights gets a warranty for the cement.
Not for cracking, only for heaving
drops.
or drops.
They do a test after it's like 30 days old, and then they do a weight test that's for like the 6-inch.
And Marshall from HRC did the stuff for Sterling Heights, they do a check on the test, or check on the cement, making sure it's MDOT quality and all that type of stuff. But I do understand your thing, one concern as I have, and hopefully everybody's trustworthy that is part of this bid process or whatever, is that, all right, we're gonna pour 5, but we're gonna stop off at Uncle Jimmy's house and make sure we get a sidewalk down on the way home, because we only have a
Or do
portion on the sidewalk.
quarter loads instead of full loads. You know, we got a small crew today, so we're not gonna do as many.
I wouldn't
You know,
think that-
there could be a lot of variables, you know.
Stop by somebody's house, they're too big,
if
it's a
you're
lot
doing
of
the
work.
quadrants, as Mr. Sigel suggested, you're gonna start including more contractors per quadrant. As soon as word gets out, they started this, they're just gonna start showing up and applying.
But
for
that's why we
those.
need to get all the heads together, and I would even ask, you know, that Chris is on the tree board. It'd be helpful to have him maybe involved, because we're talking about grinding roots and fixing that
Well,
problem. So I'd like to get all the hands on deck, get all the minds together, and flesh this out.
The biggest thing that they incurred is making sure that, what's the big R word that I'm looking for? Not reconciliation, filling back in the holes substantially, because trip hazards, rolling ankles,
Yeah.
all they need is enough to stick a 2x4 down, they don't need to excavate the whole area for it. What's the word that I'm looking for?
Restoration?
Restoration, thank you, thanks, that's what,
Alright.
is a big thing with them, especially over in Sterling Heights. Now, I put together a timeline for how this should be and how it should go, because I won't have the RFP for you by January 8th, but RFP approval for the village council February 12th. been approved for the village council meeting of March 19th. Letters sent out to the property owners for April 1st, and the project will be commencing within the May, June, July area.
Could you think the process, if we have it in February, that it's, we would, within 4 weeks?
Well, the problem with Sterling Heights is that no matter what contractor they get, all of them are busy. So they're taking on as a certain amount. I believe Sterling Heights had some that weren't done this year, which Scott said that it's not his problem. So, but
But they've been doing it for a while, it's pretty tried and true.
So I think that's the format and the timeline that we should go at. If I'm wrong,
That sounds good.
Mr. Clark, do you have an opinion?
I do not. I think your discussion is wholly appropriate to the issue, and I'm sure you'll figure it out on behalf of the village. I don't think you need a lawyer to muck up the cement project. Yeah, well,
No pun intended, right?
different issue.
Do we have an ordinance against anybody writing their initials in French said cement?
I don't think you have such an ordinance for that.
Okay.
Palm prints or footprints.
Bicycle tracks, I've seen.
What about getting meetings together? Because we have not been able to do that.
first week in January.
First week in January?
Yes.
Okay. And does it make sense that we have, like,
I would
Officer
see, I'd like
Blevins?
to have Chris there.
Pardon?
I'd like to have Chris McLeod there, if
Yeah.
he could make it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he might have some insight in that, and he does have connections and work from Sterling Heights. And do we want Officer Blevins? I
I
don't know
don't think
whether-
she needs to be here at all.
Okay. The only
She's
reason-
only to enforce the ordinance that we have in place.
Yeah, now she was the person that was actually going out and confirming if there was, it wasn't
We
she
get the
doing
complaint,
measurements?
we get the complaint, she goes and says, yes, it's a trip.
I mean, she would measure it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't even know if that makes sense that we would have an officer do that anymore. Would it be somebody, you know, who is the right person to do that?
Ordinance.
She's
She's
so
the
part of her
ordinance.
job.
So-
She is very capable of.
No, I'm not saying capable, I'm just talking about roles and responsibilities, that was part of my thing.
She's the ordinance officer.
She would continue to, and be the enforcement?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not rocket science.
No, I'm not saying it's rocket science, it's just, hey, what departments handle what, just because we've been doing something, you know, because we have two prongs, we're gonna take care of the problem, and then, it's maintenance thereafter, and it should be very, you know, able to, you know, palatable, to be able to, you know, keep them in good repair.
Sure.
Yeah, if we start with quadrants, will we continue with quadrants, or once we get all the quadrants done, would we just go to a whole, because then I would assume at that point we'd have less.
We have very
Well,
minimal.
for a maintenance issue, yeah, then
Yeah.
I would do.
Yeah, so then after we do each quadrant, just do it.
Each year,
a whole.
do what needs to be done, and we should
Then I'll
be
make
good to
Ted do
go.
it. If we're just down to the small stuff.
All right, so we'll have a meeting the first week in January. All right,
I was surprised you
How
were
about your
gonna
minutes?
say.
okay.
Bob, minutes?
Yeah, and I don't want to, honestly, just to touch on it, because I saw the minutes, there was just a half, and I was like, whoa. Then I looked at the minutes, and the copy that I have was just a half of one. The minutes are 100% what our minutes say, except that the votes were removed. It doesn't have the votes in there, and I thought we had agreed that we were going to do a synopsis where we would condense it, but we wanted to have the motions in there, and we wanted to have what the vote was.
We wanted
For instance,
the resolution,
Mhm.
and if there was a dissenting vote.
yeah, like, just the votes, what I would recommend, and I think what we discussed, is if it was unanimous, you might say 7-0. You know, there's 6 people, you know, somebody can look at it and they can see that it was unanimous, but we don't have any of the votes in there, so they can't assume that it was everybody. If there was a vote and you wanted to break out who voted for what on the motion, I think that's important, that the public knows, you know, who was.
You changed it.
It's not me, it's not
No,
me, it's the whole board.
No, I know, but you just changed it from what you didn't want to see previously.
No, I didn't.
But then you wanted,
No, I
then
didn't.
you want the vote, then you want the dissenting vote, because it's resolved.
Right, if something is, like,
And if there is a
if I
dissenting
were
vote,
doing,
it is approved.
if I were doing this, I would put a motion, you know, resolved by Hart, supported by Pazzi, and you might even look what it is. It was, like they say, unanimously approved. You don't have to do that, you can put the number vote if you wanted.
I'll
like
put 7-0.
If you want, yeah, just making it condensed.
2-3.
Part of it, we want to condense it. the minutes, our minutes are longer than Armada's, and this is only half of our minutes. Had we published the whole thing, it was twice as long, and we talked about doing a synopsis, and then if somebody wants a copy, they would get from you. But what we did agree as a board is that we would have the motion and the vote. That would be the key thing. And I don't care, if you want to give somebody some recognition or throw something out there, you know, maybe have somebody, Mike, I'm just,
Keep going. I just like listening to her go.
well, I don't want to visit this again. I do not want to talk about minutes anymore.
Does anybody
But-
else have a problem with the minutes that are put in there? Please tell me. I'm thinking I'm doing a pretty good job making the community, and I'm following what you guys want me to do. Anybody else have an issue?
No, I think you did a fine job, right? The more minutes are better, let the people know what was going on.
My issue was just the cost, because it's not necessary to be published at all. And we went from $45 to $70 a month to $150 to $160. And so when we brought this up initially, it was, how do we condense it to still get in the paper, because the board voted and thought it was important enough to be published, even though the argument was, do we or don't we? I think we all agreed by majority vote that yes, we were gonna publish it, but we were going to do a synopsis so that it would also cost save.
Well, we
That's
did.
the-
And that's what we voted on.
And putting it in the record saved a substantial amount of money.
Right.
As you guys can see in your
I'm not
packets,
arguing with that.
there's no more advisory
Right.
source anymore.
But that,
So, I
but
mean,
this
that's a
is
great-
still not what we voted to have
And we
published.
did vote for it. I mean, we took a vote, we
And the
took the
minutes are
time.
Mike's responsibility. Mike is an elected official. If that's what he feels protecting his job is what he feels he should do, then that's
But
up to
it's,
Mike.
it's our responsibility to govern the funds and and to reconcile the bills
And
with what's
it's-
going in there,
And it's
so.
best practices that people put a synopsis in. I mean, we're not creating something, this is what the people
You're
do.
gonna argue over $100.
No, it's just how the minutes are.
We voted months ago, years ago, to not go with WBRW to save money. And then you voted for another TV station for the same amount of money, which is
Okay.
tens of thousands, but you're gonna argue over a couple $100?
Right. I guess I would argue is the principle that if we go through and we discuss and we debate something, and then we actually go through a vote, and we make a resolution to do something, unless you want to make a resolution to undo that, why are we revisiting this? I mean, I
Because you
don't-
want to. If
I
Mike
know,
feels
it's
that
all I'm
if
bringing
that's the
up.
synopsis that he feels that he should do.
It isn't a
to-
synopsis, it's word for word, except the vote is removed. There's no vote on any of these. It's not what we discussed. I'm questioning it, and at this point, I'm done.
Good.
Can't
Mike,
waste.
do the minutes however you want. If people don't like it, they can vote you.
I'm doing it the way that the board asked me to last time.
That's not correct, but that's fine. I'm not gonna argue anymore. It's not what if you wanna pull up the motion and the vote and say that this is what it is, it's not accurate. It's a matter of record, and it's not. So, but I'm not gonna spend any more time on it.
Council comments?
Merry Christmas.
Motion to adjourn?
Don't try, go ahead.
I have a couple comments. I was asked by Lisa to mention specifically, thank him and our DBW. We're fixing the banners, and after Tad and Lisa and Amy put them up, a couple of them got loose, and we appreciate.
formally put them up.
For the record, they were not the ones that I put up.
But we wanted to thank you guys for fixing those. And then I wanted to mention, you did mention the Parks and Rec with the Santa Parade, but also the Romeo Lions for providing the hot chocolate and the cookies and everything. We appreciate that. So that was it.
Anyone else on council comment? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Support.
Who's the motion, who's the support?
Follow that.
All in support? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Very good.